There we go. Welcome everybody. My name is Kira of Kira K Designs, and this is part of the Stitches Expo at Home Market. And I'm going to chat a little bit about some of my knitting and crochet patterns and kits that use single skeins. And as part of that, I'm going to kind of disprove the idea a lot of people have that single skeins mean small projects. It all kind of depends on the skein. So I've got some big projects here as well. If you have questions, feel free to either unmute and holler out or put them into the chat. I'll keep that open as well and take a look at it. I'm going to start just by putting into the chat a link to my link tree. You can absolutely go to my website, kirakdesigns.com, and find everything. Linktree makes it a little easier because it's links out to Instagram and Ravelry and Facebook and patterns and kits and patterns in different places and classes and all of that. So that is linktr.ee/KiraKDesigns, or my regular website is just kirakdesigns.com. I also want to make sure to mention early and often that I'm running a discount for Stitches Expo at home, and that is the code Stitches OCT21, so Stitches for October 21 OCT. Let me put that into the chat too. So the code Stitches OCT21 is actually kind of two discounts in one. So it works for free shipping on any of my kits, shipping within the United States, and it works for buy 3, get the 4th free for any of my patterns. And I have 112 patterns right now, so there are quite a few options to look through and a nice range. So today, at least right now, I'm talking about single skein projects for knitting and crochet. I'll be back a little later today to talk about lace projects, and actually what I'm wearing fits the bill for both. So this is a single skein. It was designed specifically to use one skein when I was a newer spinner. I spun my first skein, made a scarf, but spun my second skein, made a cowl, and then I really wanted to make a garment, but I wasn't spinning a whole lot of yarn, and I was spinning kind of big yarn. So this is generally going to be one skein of a worsted weight yarn. It's called the Watercolor Shrug, and it's worked sideways with this really fun and easy lace pattern that specifically doesn't use a whole lot of yarn and gives a nice stretchiness to it. And then the edging with the shawl collar is worked afterwards. So this particular one that I'm wearing is under 200 yards of worsted weight yarn. So in a lot of cases, that's going to be one skein. So that one's really fun. Not too hard. If you happen to be new to doing garments, a shrug is a great way to go because it doesn't have to fit super precisely. So that one again is called the Watercolor Shrug. Welcome everyone who's new and popping in. I'm Kira of Kira K Designs, and I'm going to be talking about single skein projects. Some are small, some are big. I kind of like to have a bit of each. So this is the Watercolor Shrug that I'm wearing. And like all my patterns, it comes in a range of different sizes. So let's talk next about some of the things that I have available in kits. You can always get the pattern on its own, but the kits are nice because you get the right kind of yarn, the right amount of yarn, and any little extras. So this is a fun single skein project that uses hybrid crochet, sometimes called Tunisian crochet, and it's just a little collar. It's called the interlocking tiles collar. And you can see this stitch is a really fun one. It's called full stitch, and that is in hybrid crochet, sometimes called Tunisian crochet, although I'm moving away from that language because there's a long story, but basically it's an exotification of a name applied to a place that it doesn't come from, that has its own textile traditions. But it's a really cool technique where you use a long crochet hook. This is a great introduction to it if you haven't tried it before. And then I've got these beautiful buttons that are from woolly moss roots. They are branch slices. And the fun thing is that all my different colors of the kit, the yarn is from Sincere Sheep, so it's naturally dyed Corma wool. Each color of yarn comes with a different variety of wood. So you can choose depending on one or the other, up to you, but there's really no wrong choice because there's lots of beautiful stuff in there. I also want to show you this same design and a really different yarn. This other yarn is actually the yarn that inspired the design because I don't tend to use highly variegated yarn, especially for crochet, but I was working on a collaboration and this is a yarn I got. So the hybrid crochet can be a great way to deal with a highly variegated yarn if it's not working for you in regular crochet or even knitting, because the yarn lands in different ways. And of course, one skein projects are great for stash busting and going through to find yarns that you loved in the store and either never got around to, or you tried it and it just didn't work. Sometimes changing up the stitch pattern or even the craft is a great way to handle those. Welcome everybody who's new. I'm just going to put into the chat real quick a link to my link tree, which is a place where you kind of keep all your links, or I keep all my links there, and it's easy to bounce from there to either patterns or kits. And I have my patterns both on my website and on Ravelry, so you can you look at either one depending on which you prefer. And also just to mention, I have a special going for Stitches Expo this weekend. It'll run through Tuesday night, and that is the code Stitches OCT21, stands for October 21, and that gives either free shipping on kits or buy 3 get the 4th free for patterns, or both if you end up wanting some patterns and some kits. So this is a really fun single skein project, which uses a gradient cake, and it's a nice way to do something with just one skein and not get bored. This is fingering weight, so it's a bigger project. You know, one skein goes a lot farther if it's a finer yarn. And this is a really fun gradient cake from Houndstooth Fiber Arts. And it also has some little beads at the edge. I just taught my class on knitting with beads today, which was super fun. I think some people from that class are here too. It is a top-down shawl. This is the smaller size, which I have in the kit. The pattern has a larger size as well, which is about to elbow length on me. And not too tricky to do, and really fun to see the gradient emerge as you're knitting along. I always get excited to see the next color. So it's a good way to keep me working on a project and get it done faster. That one's called the Stratiform Shawl. Another one that kind of proves that one skein projects are not teeny tiny projects is this guy. Let me back up so you can see it. This is called the Fretwork Shawl, and it is crocheted with a lace weight yarn. This particular yarn is from Sincere Sheep, and it's a big skein. It's 1,000 yards on the skein. I did not use it all, and it's a really nice big project, even in crochet. People tend to think about crochet taking a lot of yarn, but it kind of depends on how you think about it. So I have a weight here of fabric that would be similar if I knit with a fingering weight yarn. And since I crocheted with a lace weight yarn, I got that same kind of quality of my fabric and thickness, and it doesn't necessarily take more yarn in terms of the weight of the project. It does in yardage, but depends on how you think about it. So this one again, Fretwork Shawl. There is a shawlette version of it as well. This guy I don't have in kits online, but one skein of pretty much any lace weight yarn is going to do that. So if you have some sitting in your stash or some that you're hoping to buy from a vendor this weekend, that can be a fun one. I also have, let's see, I just got a big pile of stuff here. I have a fun, quick, kind of smaller one skein project, which is just 250 yards of a fingering weight yarn. This particular one is a beautiful hand-dyed alpaca, and you can see it's got beads in there too. And so for this kind of thing, for my kits, I have the beads in the kit, as well as the tool you need to put on the beads. In this particular method, they're hooked on, so there's a tiny little crochet hook in there. And this is one where you get the pattern memorized pretty quickly, so you don't have to pay a whole lot of attention, then all of a sudden it's done. Sometimes I like one skein project for that if it's a small, quick one. This is called the Radiant Scarf. And the cool thing about this, the way the beads are put in, they show on both sides. The pattern looks different on both sides, doesn't look the same, it looks good on both sides, which I really like for scarves, because I don't like having to make sure it's placed right side out. If it kind of flips over, I'd rather just toss it on and run out the door and not have to fuss with it too much. So that one's really fun, and the beads are not too tricky, and they add a lot of interest for you. I've got another one with beads. Some of my folks here from my beading class earlier got to see these up close as well. This is called a Luminous Scarf, and you can see the drape on this yarn here. This is a tencel yarn, so it's cellulose. Nice and shimmery yarn, and we've got the beads mixed in here. It's a different lace rib stitch. And in this one, again, the beads show on both sides, and the pattern doesn't look bad on the wrong side, so you don't have to worry too much about it. And this is how that comes. So again, you get the yarn, you get the pattern. There's a PDF download code in here, as well as a printed pattern folded up to fit in, and then the glass beads. And this one has a beading needle to put the beads on, with full instructions for it too. If anyone has questions, feel free to put them in the chat or holler out. Again, I've got a code Stitches OCT21, which gives buy 3, get 1 free for the patterns, or free shipping on kits. So this is going to be more traditional, what people think of as a single skein project is a hat. And this one is kind of fun. It's a knitted hat with a bill, and there's nothing in here for the bill. It isn't full of cardboard or anything like that. It's all done through engineering, so you can see it sticks up really well. The whole hat, this one's called the Dapper Cloche. You can kind of pull it down and get a little bit of a 20s vibe going on. All of it is done in slip stitch, and then the bill is a different slip stitch pattern that's denser, and it's a double layer. So you can see it's nice and dense. And then the all over pattern has this really nice kind of herringbone, big zigzag going on. So that one's really fun. Takes a bit of time if you're doing all over slip stitch like that to make it dense. You've got a lot of rows, but totally worth it. I happened to grab two hats that match what I'm wearing just because it's hard for me to put on something that doesn't match what I'm wearing. I have some beanies, but I also really like doing hats that have a bit of shape to them that aren't just a plain beanie. So this is called the Japanese maple hat because the color reminds me of the Japanese maple leaves on a tree. I had one outside my last house that is just this beautiful, beautiful deep red, but also the patterning reminds you of that as well. And this is an Aran weight yarn with a really simple lace pattern that has this cool detail where you pick up loops through the holes in the lace. So you get this really nice texture, and that's where I'm seeing that leaf shape. And I will tell you one of my opinions about hats. I have a lot of opinions. I think that the crown shaping on a hat either should be pretty much invisible or it should make a beautiful pattern on its own. So this is an example of one where you've got a lovely pattern and the decreases sort of flow from the main stitch. And this other one that I held up before is an example where you don't really see the decreases, they kind of just sort of happen. Welcome folks who are new. I'm showing off some single skein projects, big and small, all depends on the size of your skein and somewhat on the size of the yarn. If you have questions, feel free to holler out or put them into the chat. And then I'm gonna put into the chat again for the new folks, a link to my link tree, which gets you to everywhere that I am on the internet pretty much. So you can bounce from there to kits or patterns or check out my YouTube channel or upcoming classes or anything like that. So I've got another gradient example. It's funny, this is a really vibrant gradient, but it just is not like showing up on Zoom. So this goes from a green through turquoises into a brighter blue. And this is the Terraced Vineyard wrap. And it's a gradient yarn from Freya Fibers, who some of you might know. She's been doing gradients for a while. And again, a simple project, a fine yarn lets you do a bigger single skein project. And the gradient is really fun because it keeps you interested as you go along. All right, so I've got a question about this cowl behind me. This is called the overlay cowl. And that one, the yarn requirements are actually a little bit fluid because I designed it partially to work with scrap yarn and mini skeins. It works really well for that. This particular one is a big gradient cake with 750 yards of alpaca yarn, hand dyed in a gradient. And then one skein, I think it takes about 400 yards of more of a traditional sock yarn, although one that has a little bit of silk. And because the overlay, the contrast color there is a round yarn, it pops out physically even more than it would just with the stitch pattern. And the shine on there makes it pop really nicely too. So I do have kits with this. It's not a single skein project, but it's one skein of each yarn. So you have minimal ends to weave in, which is one of the nice things about single skein projects. That and they tend to be quicker than using the same yarn in a multi-skein project. All right, let's see. Kind of picking what I want to hold up next. I also have with me samples for a lot of my other kits. So if you want to know about something that you saw online that isn't a single skein, I'm happy to chat about that too. This is a really fun one that doesn't take a lot of yarn. It's 150 yards of a DK weight yarn. And since it's a cowl, it's flexible enough to use a yarn that's a little bigger or smaller. And this is a fun diamond lace pattern. And this particular one is in a bamboo, so it drapes really, really nicely and really holds blocking beautifully. I blocked this, I'm gonna say 15 years ago. I made this particular sample and I've never reblocked it. I have washed it, but the yarn kind of leans in to being blocked and staying open. silks and alpacas would have a very similar effect to that, and linen somewhat as well. This one is called the Black Diamond Cowl. It's actually one of my earlier designs. I've been releasing knitting and crochet patterns since 2007. Before that, I used to just make things up, so I was designing, but not necessarily writing it down. And then I currently have 112 different patterns in a range of skill levels. So there's a lot of options to look through. And I've got all my patterns on my own website, kirakadesigns.com, also on Lovecrafts and on Ravelry. If you can use Ravelry, the search function is really nice, so you can find what you're looking for a little bit quicker. But you're also welcome always to email me if you have a question or just want a recommendation, like, hey, I'm doing my first lace. Is this one a good idea, or should I pick the other one? So next up is another one where it proves that single skein does not necessarily mean small, and it doesn't necessarily mean fast. This is done in a lace weight yarn. It's called the Gossamer Lace Shawl, and it is all over lace. It's got this beautiful lace panel down the back. So it's in a Faroese style shaping with a straight panel down the back, and then the wings on the side have the shaping all happens out there. And this is an all over lace pattern that again is a form of a lace rib. I really like them because you can see that it's working, that things are stacking up in a very orderly way, and you don't have a whole lot of rows. So this particular one, I don't have kits, but again, one skein of lace weight yarn, pretty much any lace weight yarn will do it. And there are a couple of sizes. This is the larger of them. And it's pretty good. It's not going to keep you warm, but more for when you need something a little color, like if you're going to a summer party and you want to cover up a bit. And if you were to use something like a cashmere or a yak, one of those nice, super soft woolly fibers, that will give you a bit more warmth as well. I like it for traveling because this whole thing, I usually fold it a little nicer, but you know, it doesn't take up a whole lot of space in a suitcase. I've got another fun one with a gradient yarn. And gradient yarn projects are often single skeins because you don't want to necessarily repeat the gradient or go kind of there and back from whence you came. This is a crochet design, back up a bit, for a shawl that's again that kind of Faroese shape where it's straight on the bottom as opposed to pointed. Although if you have the yarn you wanted to, I have seen people add in 3 more triangles at the bottom to bring it to a point. And this is a gradient cake from Helmstooth Fiber Arts. And the pattern is these star motifs that are all joined modularly. You don't have to seam them together, you join as you go. And the instructions for that are included, as well as a stitch diagram for each shawl and a sort of a layout or a map of the order in which to make the pieces. Sorry, I said each shawl, I meant each star in the shawl. But there's a map of the shawl, and so it tells you the order in which to make the stars if you're using a gradient. If you're using just a plain color yarn, you could of course do them in any order you wanted to. But again, the watching the gradient show up is really fun. So that's called the Sea Star Shawl. It's a newer design that came out right at the beginning of this year. So we had a pandemic photo shoot with a photographer in a mask. This is another fun one. Again, lace weight yarn makes a single skein go farther. This is called the Meandering Pathway Shawl, and it's a similar shape where you've got that Faroese style where there's just a panel down the center back, and then all the shaping happens outside of that. A different lace kind of column here. This one, the construction's different because you start by knitting the border, and you just knit a nice long border, and you pick up stitches, and then wear it upwards. So this is, it's actually less than a skein. I did 2 sizes. I did a shawlette and a small shawl out of the same skein of this yarn because it was really fun and I really liked how it looked. This is a linen silk. And again, it's a yarn that leans in to lace. It likes being blocked and stays blocked out really, really nicely. So Teresa, were you asking about this one? I think so, based on the timing. So yeah, this is a shawl. It's not going to look great over my little red shrug, but it works like this. And again, a nice one if you need a little bit of color and something interesting if you're going to like a summery party. You can also wear it wrapped up like a scarf if you want to. And if I do that, I like to offset this so I'm not getting what I think of as a bib effect, and I still do get something pointy down at the bottom. I don't like it as much like that, but that is totally a personal choice. So you can always play with it. But often when I try things on, I don't quite like it. Giving a little tilt makes all the difference. Same thing with hats. Sometimes I don't like it as a beanie, but tilting it to the side or tilting it back makes me happier with it. Sometimes I turn things inside out and I wear them that way. I saw a wave. Do you have a question, Sandra? No? Okay, cool. Feel free, if you do, you're welcome to interrupt me or put something into the chat, whatever you feel like. And then I've got another one here. That's a really nice single skein. This is small farm alpaca from near me. So I went on a visit to the alpaca ranch and fed treats to the alpacas and took home a special skein. And this is a nice fun one that's also lace. And it's got a pattern that is a little bit more tricky, but you still see there's a line that you can follow. And I love stitches like that, especially in lace. I like to have something I can track visually to know that it's working. There's beautiful lace that is so complex that you can't tell if you did it right till you're done. And that's not my style. I like to be able to say, oh yeah, that's lining up. Oh good, that's lining up. And that way throughout the row, I get a nice little check-in and know it's working. And I don't get to the end of the row and realize I'm short a stitch and have no idea where I messed up. So that kind of lace is what I like doing. Wow, I blew through my pile of stuff. I talk fast. We don't have a lot of questions. For anyone who missed it, what I'm wearing right now is called the Watercolor Shrug, and it's a great one skein project if you want to do something that is actually a garment and not an accessory. You can also just look for big skeins. Some companies do voluptuous skeins and they go farther if it's, you know, a 4-ounce skein instead of a 100-gram skein or ball of yarn. I'm going to put into the chat again my a link to find me and find patterns and kits. And I'm also going to put in the discount code. So Stitches OCT 21, standing for October 21, is a code that'll get you free shipping within the US for any of my kits, or buy 3, get the 4th free for any of my patterns. And you can even reuse that. So if you have your eye on 8 patterns, you could get 2 of them for free. You just need to check out twice for that. So I'm happy to show things again or other stuff if anyone has a question. Otherwise, I can just tell you a bit about me. I'm in Oakland, California. I've been a knitter and crocheter all my life and designing patterns since 2007. And my sweet spot for designing is things that make the knitter or crocheter feel smart, because it just makes sense, both because the stitch patterns line up really nicely, but also that the instructions are clear. If there's anything beyond a really simple stitch, I'll have a stitch diagram or a chart as well as written instructions. So you can follow whichever one you want to. So you could either follow what you're comfortable with, or you could stretch a little bit and follow the one that you aren't as used to, but know you have the other there as a backup. I also make a point of showing multiple yarns for all of my patterns so that you don't feel like you're stuck with a particular yarn. And those tend to be different in terms of the price point might be different, the fiber might be different. Maybe there's a wool-based yarn and a cellulose-based yarn. I might show a solid and a variegated, just to give you an idea of all the options that are out there and a few tried and true options that you know and you've seen finished that you know work really well. That also led me into offering kits because sometimes people, you know, aren't quite sure which alternate yarns are going to work for a project. And the kit is nice because then you can get the yarn that I have, even if it's from an indie dyer that isn't easily accessible online, because they aren't all. And if there are buttons or beads or other extras, they're all right in there for you. So you don't have to go searching out a whole bunch of stuff. And I just want to mention, I'm going to be back a little bit later today at 7 o'clock Central to talk about projects with lace. Some of my one skein projects are lace. It is a good trick for making yarn go farther because having those holes in there mean there's more air than yarn in your pattern. But I'll also be bringing some larger projects that are more than one skein and use lace stitches. We're not a chatty group. There's actually a good number of people here. Yeah, Teresa, question?
2 questions, please. The first is the Cyclic Cowl.
Mm-hmm.
Do you happen to have that? I'm sorry I came in a couple minutes late.
I got it.
Do you mind putting it on? I'm curious to see what it looks like wrapped twice.
Sure. Yeah, so it is plenty long enough to wrap twice without needing to not having it be close.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah. If you want it to be super duper warm, you could totally get a third wrap in here. You know, if you really just like being cozy, or you're, you know, going to the Arctic and you need to
I need to support all of my chins. Yeah. Now, I wanted to ask because I don't like when cowls are that snug, and that looked comfortable. And the other one for the overlay, I was looking at the colors of kits. The one, that kit right there is the one picture. It's kind of like the green with the like autumny ones. Do you happen to have any of them worked up in any of the other colors?
Kind of. Sorry, I'm just gonna like disappear for a second and dig through my box on the floor. I do not have the full cowl in any of the other colors because it is over 1,000 yards, and that's a lot of effort to put into.
Sure.
The dyer is really sweet, and she made mini gradients and knit them up on a little sock knitting machine.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so I don't have at hand the overlay colors.
Sure, no, but that's perfect to see it that way. The one it's the aloe blossom gradient, the one that's paired with the purple. Is that the one, that one?
It's not, but it's really, really similar to the top half of it.
The top half, okay.
Yeah, this is one that I'm out of stock on right now. This is the Cottonwoods, something about Cottonwoods, and this is Frost, which is a very subtle one, but it's not quite as subtle as it looks. Let me find it here. There you go.
Oh, yeah. And if we wanted a different main color, is that possible?
You know, what is up is what I have. I will probably be restocking those before Stitches West 2022 if you come to that show. And then after the show, I'll restock what I have online. But at the moment, that's what I've got. You can always check with the yarn dyers to see if they have them. Black Diamond Alpacas, which does this background gradient yarn, they're on Etsy. I don't know offhand if they've got the gradients up there, but I certainly hope so. If not, you can always try contacting them, because I never carry all the colors available in a yarn. I'm not a yarn shop. I'm kind of...
For sure.
So I usually pick, you know, anywhere from 4 to 8 different options, trying to hit warm colors and cool colors and something subtle and something exciting, just to have a good option for everyone. But anything I carry in a kit is a yarn dyer where I love their yarn and I really like them as people. They're all literally my friends in real life. So you can check with Donna about that, and I'd be happy to have you buy yarn from Donna instead of from me.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, welcome. I'm seeing people are kind of popping in and out. So again, my name is Kira of Kira K Designs. I'm going to put a link into the chat, and then I've got a code Stitches OCT21, and that would give you free shipping on any of my knitting or crochet kits, or buy 3 get the 4th free on any patterns. And I had a bunch of single skein projects that I kind of went through. I might start looping just for the folks who came in late. So I'm going to take my big pile and flip it upside down so I can get to the bottom again. So this guy is a hybrid crochet technique where you're using a long hook to pick up loops on a forward pass and then crochet them off. I've got yarn from Sincere Sheep, which is all grown in the US, naturally dyed. All this is an undyed color. And then they come with these beautiful wooden buttons as well as the pattern. So you don't have to search out the buttons. They're already in there for you. Another one that's really fun in a gradient yarn is from, it's called the Stratiform Shawl. This is from Houndstooth Fiber Arts, is the dyer. And then I've paired the gradient cake with this pattern and also the glass beads that are on the hem that give a nice little weight to the hem. It's already got a nice drape to the yarn, super wash with a little nylon, but those beads really help it hang nicely and keep the lace opened. This guy is called the Radiant Scarf. It's another one knit with beads and a nice simple rib pattern. And again, the kit has the beads as well as the hook to put the beads on, and the pattern both printed and as a PDF download. So everything you need except for your needles, your knitting needles, or in the case of other patterns, your crochet hooks, is what I like to put into a kit. Got another one with beads. This is called the Luminous Scarf. This particular one is made out of tencel, and the kits for this come with the beads and the beading needles, as well as the yarn and the pattern. This is a really nice big one for a single skein, because it was a big skein of very fine yarn. It's called the Fretwork Shawl. This particular one is crocheted from the top down, so the edging at the bottom is where you finish. Let me pull up so you can really see the sides of it. It is a very nice cozy shawl. There is a shawlette size on the pattern, so you'll get that both sizes when you get the pattern. And this particular one is the big one. And I use Sincere Sheep's naturally dyed Cormo lace yarn for this guy. And I didn't even use it all. It goes really far when you've got a finer yarn. Takes a bit more time, but I think of that as more hours of enjoyment. And the fabric from a lace weight pattern I find super wearable in my climate out here in the San Francisco Bay Area. All right, well, we've already hit the end of the time. It always goes fast. I'm gonna be back talking about lace patterns. So some of these and a lot of other ones as well at 5 o'clock my time, so 7 o'clock Central in a few hours. And Sandra, the one I'm wearing is called the Watercolor Shrug. And I'm wearing the second of, I believe there are 6 sizes in it. So it's not fitted, which is nice. If you're getting into sweaters or you just want to make a gift for somebody and you can't measure them and you aren't sure they're measuring themselves right, if they might be giving you their bra size when you're asking for a chest measurement. It can be really nice to do this because you don't have to take that into consideration. And this one, I will pop it off. It looks a lot better on, so it's a good one I find for me to be wearing.
That is so true about the bra size for the chest measurement. Oh my God.
And half those people are not wearing the right bra size. So that's
when we asked my brother, my mom was making a dress for my niece, asked for her chest size, and he was like, well, I don't think she's wearing a bra yet. I'm like, come on now.
Yeah. And people don't know. If you don't make clothes, you don't realize you need to know those kind of things.
Yeah, really cute.
Yeah, it's really fun and quick too. So you start at the ribbing, you go into this lace pattern that is not hard at all. If you've never done lace, you can totally do this and you will get it quickly, and end up at the ribbing at the other side. 2 teeny tiny seams just from the armpit out to the hem. And that's also adjustable. In the pattern, I prompt you to try it on and make sure it's comfortable, that you get, whatever range of motion you need.
Yeah.
Pick up stitches around the opening, and there's a little shawl collar done with some short rows. Although I've seen some people skip that and just do the ribbing around the opening, and that's fine too. But I like the little
details. Is that yarn a kettle yarn?
Yeah, this is a hand-dyed yarn from Huckleberry Knits.
Ah, okay.
I love Huckleberry.
Yeah.
It's really pretty.
Isn't it beautiful? It's got this lovely depth, and it's that rare red that almost anybody can wear.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Huckleberry Knits is this yarn. The yarn's called American Dream Worsted. I can't remember the color name off the top of my head, but you'll recognize it, I bet. But I've done this. My original watercolor shrug was inspired by me learning how to spin and wanting to make a garment, but not having a whole lot of yardage. So I got a garment out of the smallest size, was what I did that one with, and it was 180 yards of worsted weight. So this is a skein.
Yeah. On the sizing on that, as it goes up in size, is it just increasing the length, or is it also increasing the
size? Yeah.
The down the back size.
Both, because it's really important to increase the bicep as it goes to bigger size.
Yeah.
And the circumference of the bicep is the same as the back length, except for the ribbing.
And if that isn't the case for your body, is it fairly easy to adjust? And okay.
Yeah, absolutely. You're basically making a rectangle that goes from where you want your sleeve to, so you get the right amount of stitches to fit your arm. And then you just make a rectangle till it's as long as you want to be, sew it up till you're comfortable with the size of the opening, and then do the ribbing. So it would be a simple one to make an adjustment to, compared to a full sweater that has to fit on more parts of the body.
Right.
Yeah. That would make a nice gift.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it'd be fairly quick.
It is, yeah. I have someone I meet pretty regularly for private lessons who did one baby sweater pretty well, but it took her a long time. And then she just busted out one of these for a friend in a couple of weeks. And she doesn't knit that often.
Yeah.
And that she always wanted to like meet with me when she got to the next part. But she got it done fast and she started another one for another friend.
Wow.
So it's nice for a gift. And
Yeah.
the small size would fit, you know, in the teen tween range too.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
See
Nice
you later.
All right. Have a great afternoon. Enjoy the rest of the show.
Good seeing you, Teresa.
You too. I'm super excited about the crochet kits because I have recently rediscovered my first love of crochet. And so now I'm like, well, maybe I need to actually get some crochet projects.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know good yarn back when I was crocheting. I got a little, like, dipped a toe and then I had no idea. So now I want to go back and actually use really luxurious yarn with crochet.
Yeah. Makes a difference.
Yeah.
Jinx.
Thank you so much, Kira.
All right. Thanks for coming, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.